My name is Mary Drelling, and I'm coming to you live from Anaheim Hills with Francis Drelling. We're here to interview, and I am doing this on behalf of Bianca Morris. How old you are, and where you were born, and where you reside currently?
I'm 56. I was born in Cambridge, England, and I reside in Orange County, California.
And what's your occupation now?
I'm an attorney for Specialty Restaurants Corporation.
Francis, can I ask you what brought you to America?
Sure. Did you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
My father was a military officer flying bombers in the NATO countries and around the world, stationed at Cambridge, England area. And then he was later transferred back to the United States, and all around the United States, back to England, Vietnam, other places, wound up here in Orange County. There's a lot of differences between the countries, but I can tell you about when I lived there the first time. I was just a young child and I couldn't really remember much. But when we moved back the second time, we lived in military housing for a while and off base as well. And the interesting thing about it is they had a lot of sheep, and they would bring the sheep through the military housing area all the time. They would just, every morning, a flood of sheep would come running through, and you could go out and see all the sheep coming and going. We had plants that were nearby, and our nanny would make us all pies. They'd be blackberry or whatever kind of pies we could pick off the berries. We'd bring them in, and she'd make us pies for the day. England was also different because we could go to see the various markets. They had food markets we could go to. Or I used to ride a double-decker bus when I went to the university there as a young child. And we wore our uniforms. And I remember basically planes, trains, and automobiles to go see the James Bond movie Goldfinger when we were over there. So those are the type of memories I had. Very, very rural, but it wasn't rural at all.
So about what age did you come back to the States? And can you tell me a little bit how it was different?
I was about 4 years old when we moved back to the States, and at that time my father was stationed in Nebraska at what was called a SAC base, a Strategic Air Command base. Now they've changed the bomber force structure as a result of the changing events in the world to where we don't have SAC any longer. But at the time that's what he did, and he would fly all over the world, and we lived on the military base. This is a time when John F. Kennedy was killed, and I remember the funeral. This is the time of To Kill a Mockingbird, the movie that came out. It had a profound influence on my life. Later in the 60s, the riots were taking place, and my father was serving in Vietnam, flying F-4s. And after he came back from Vietnam, he went to teach at Washington University in St. Louis, and during that time, his building was partially burned down. And I remember talking to him, and he said that there were just mostly a few agitators who were doing this, and students who were followers, not really believing in the cause, but just following around. And his example was one student came up to him after rioting and saying, "I'm sorry, I broke an ashtray, I'd like to pay you for that." So those were different times, and that's the tumultuous times that we were going through. And it's not that way today. As a result, today, people try and support the military more than they did back then. They try and make it very clear, I may not support what the military is doing today, what you order them to do today, but I support the men and women who serve. So that's a big change that came out of the 60s.
Do you have any comments about how things have changed politically?
Well, things have changed in a lot of ways. In the 60s, you had the riots taking place, and you had a silent majority, and you may still have a silent majority who don't express themselves in that same way. But I think what you've seen in the political parties on both sides is people trusting less in their political party and less in the government. And now you see our current elections, which have everybody on both sides, I believe, expressing an anti-establishment attitude. Both Democrats and the Republicans both feel let down by their parties, both feel let down by the government, and they don't trust anymore in those parties and in the government. And that's why you see outsiders running so strong. But in the meantime, the influence that these things had on me is that I became involved politically as I grew up to go out, not to protest, but to go out and do positive things, to serve as precinct captains for one of the parties, to stuff envelopes, to make phone calls, to go be a poll watcher where you go down to the polling stations and you call people up, you try and get them to come out and vote. So what I saw from the 60s encouraged me, and I guess others as well, to become involved politically. So I think we have a lot of people involved that way, more people than ever before, where grassroots can make a big difference, but also those very same people trusting less in the establishment, and the establishment right now grappling with being under siege. That's what you see today.
If you could choose one event in your lifetime that you believe changed the world the most, what would it be?
I would say it's the invention of space food sticks. No, actually, what I would say is related to space food sticks. What I would say, it was John F. Kennedy's declaration that in 10 years we will land a man on the moon, because that created an investment in the space program, which spun off just untold numbers of technology, which is spun into the civilian and the military world. It resulted in America landing on the moon. It resulted in multiple launches into space, the space shuttle program, the Mars program we're looking at today, and all of our technology oftentimes has a root right back to that declaration. That man put the country behind that, and away we went. That, in my lifetime, could be summarized as the most pivotal.
How would you say these experiences have impacted your life?
Well, they've impacted my life in many ways, but some of the significant ways for me are that growing up as a military dependent in Europe taught me about patriotism and our relationship with our European allies, how that's where our founding fathers came from, and how they helped to make us what we are today, and how in return we've gone back to be united with them in our common defense fronts, and how we work together with them generally in the world. But it's also taught me about growing up with patriots, men who were today's Minutemen, if you will. My friend's father was blown up in his plane during a training mission. My other friend's father was shot down in Vietnam. My dad flew in Vietnam for over 100 missions, member in the Red River Valley Fighter Pilots Association. Received a couple of air medals while he was over there, nominated for the Silver Star, all sorts of things. But it taught me what it's like to live with patriots. Common people today don't get that, and that's what it brought to me, a lot of patriotism, a lot about our country. It's brought me to learn about our Bill of Rights, why that Bill of Rights is so important, why we have it. People don't even understand what it is and why we have it, and they talk about giving it away. But they need to understand why we got those rights in the first place, why they were so important to us. And if you understand that, you'll understand America. And if you don't understand the history, you're going to repeat the failures of the past. So it's taught me our history, our problems in the past, why we are the way we are today, and made me very proud of our country, and why I want to continue America on a right path where it can help not only itself, but others as well. So it's been very important to me in those regards, understanding who I am as an American, who I am as a person, and as a political being, and what power I have in a country. And one vote does make a difference.
All right, Francis, thank you so much for coming on with us and sharing your insight on events that a lot of people don't know about. And this is Mary Drelling signing off of Canyon High School.